Um, and I remember that first night being in the hospital, the nurse that was working that night, when she came to my bed, she said to me, I read your chart. And I'm just shocked. She's like, I've seen people come inside this hospital that has taken way less pill than you, that has not even taken pills that you've
Mhm.
taken, and they didn't make it.
We may look different and live in different countries, yet our stories are knitted with the same threads of excitement, uncertainties, challenges, and victories. As we journey through the ups and downs of life, it is our undeniable will and God's strength that propel us to joy after pain, smile after frowns, and ups after downs. We were born to win. We were destined to greatness. We are overcomers. Welcome to GodScoop's raw and unedited stories. Welcome to Raw and Unedited Stories, where stories are told to uplift, encourage, and brighten your day. Thanks to those who already subscribed and those who have not, now is the time to do so. So click the word subscribe. Today with us is a girl. At age 13, she was violated in the worst possible way by someone she trusted. This was followed by other traumas. She blamed God, the God of love. Did he abandon her? Why would he allow this to happen? Isn't he a good God? However, she never gave up on him, and he showed her how much he loves her. She is a champion, an overcomer. With us today is Kamar Chin. Hi, Kamar. How
Hi,
are you, my love?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Kamar, just before you begin to tell your story, just tell our listeners who you are. Who are you? Who is Kamar Chin?
Okay, so as you've just heard, my name is Kamar Chin. I'm the eldest of six children for my mom. I was born and raised in Clarendon, a little town called Frankfield. Um, and I moved to Canada 8 years ago. I love the Lord. I am just a person who wants to serve Him in any way He chooses. And this is one of the ways, just to share how He has brought me from a dark place into this wonderful thriving of becoming who He has destined me to be.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Kamar.
Thank
Thank you. A beautiful woman of God. Kamar, tell our listeners your story, right? And while you do that, I want you to just move over a little bit to the right, right?
To my right or your,
Yeah, yes,
to my right,
yes,
okay?
to your right, yes. Right,
Yes.
because I want our listeners to see everything. I don't want them to miss anything. Thank you. That's perfect. So go ahead now and tell our listeners your story.
Okay, so as you have put it in the introduction, at the age of 13, um, I remember just being touched in a way that I was never expecting. I didn't even know that was possible. I was just like in the kitchen washing dishes, and I just felt a touch from behind me. And to my surprise, it was by someone that I know very well, trusted. I was just in shock. Honestly, I don't think I said anything in that moment. It was utter silence. And but life continued after that. I
Mark, when you said you were touched, are you meaning an intimate way? I just want our listeners to be clear.
Yes, in the lower private area.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And let's talk about that moment. How did you feel?
I was just in utter shock, to be honest. As a young girl, just going into puberty, I didn't know all about sex and stuff like that, but I knew that to be touched in that area was something, you know. wasn't supposed to be done by someone you didn't give the okay to do it, and then by someone that you've trusted. It was just a shocker for me. I didn't have words. I didn't have words in that moment.
Of course, absolutely. So, was there anybody that you felt safe to share this with? Any school friend, teacher, mother, friend?
Um, at the time, I didn't feel like I had anyone I could share what happened to me with. And it's just because of the way I was growing up. Like, like you didn't really have the space to be vulnerable and to speak about, how you feel or stuff like that. And when it comes to friends, I just didn't know how they would look at me. It was just a sense of shame right away, and a sense of maybe I did cause this to happen to myself. I don't know. I,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So, and I'm assuming that this is a gentleman. So, how
Yes.
did you perceive this person afterwards? How did you compare your perception of him before and after this incident?
Oh my gosh. Like, my perception of him changed like completely. This was a gentleman that I knew ever since I have sense, as we Jamaica would say. So I looked up to him like, not so much of a father figure, but of a gentleman that would take care of me, who wouldn't hurt me. So I was like, wow, I'm so surprised. Like, you're not the person I thought you were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
So, Kamar, as we fast forward into the story, how did this affect your school life, your home life, just your entire perception of yourself as well? Of course, yeah. Let's talk
okay.
about that.
Yeah. So as I said, I am the eldest of six children. So I had like at the time two younger siblings that I would, help to take care of along with my grandmom. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I just this just put an additional burden that I didn't see coming, because all along it was, I trusted God. I things were, moving in a good way. So this was just like something left field for me. So I didn't know how to cope. I honestly didn't know how to cope. And I started blaming God. Like, why would you add another burden to me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a child, and I gave my life to you at 11 years old. I'm thinking you're going to protect me. You're the all-knowing God. How could you let something like this happen to me? So
Mm-hmm.
my self-esteem was demolished.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the little that I had, anyways. My schoolwork, I was a smart little girl. At that age, I had just started high school, but previous to going to high school, I would be, whenever my teacher would leave the classroom, he would leave it in my care to teach the kids who weren't up to speed to most of us. And I would take that on with pride. I was the deputy head girl for my primary school. So I was doing very well, and this kind of shook the core of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think like mentally I was coping, so my schoolwork was kind of being affected. It did.
Okay. And so, after the first incident, did it continue?
It did. It did. It did for, I would say, around 5 years thereabout, and that was another thing I took on as well, because I'm like, why didn't I speak up? Why did I hold it in? Um, But then as I'm older now, I realize that's what shame does. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you take on things that you shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I am not in control of what someone else do. Um, I am in control of what I do and my reaction and stuff like that. So shame was heavily something that was always at the forefront of my mind, and
Mm,
feeling like people were going to judge me and look at me a certain way. And in my community, everyone would know about this. So I was like, I rather to keep it to myself.
mm,
Uh, I was a young girl, but a lot of even older people, they look up to me.
mm,
They saw me as a young woman who loved the Lord, who would sing on the church choir, who would teach the younger children in my church, at, at Sunday school, and even for we have rallies back home. You know, when it's rally time, I would be one of those persons who would help them with the choir, the children's choir. So how could I let people see me any differently? That's what my mindset was, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just push through.
mm-hmm.
So
Kamar,
yes.
I know that's a typical behavior from someone who have been abused, that they blame themselves, and I see based on what you're saying that's what you did. My
Yes.
question is, as the abuse escalated, did it change from touch to something else, or did it get more intense in touching? Talk to us about that. Describe that a bit.
Okay, so it did not become penetration. So I just want to make that clear, but it
Mm-hmm,
did become excessive, and to the point where being laid on top of me, and I have to be like, "What are you doing? Get off of me!"
mm-hmm,
There are times in the morning when I would wake up and he would say to me, "Why did you run me out of your room? Why did you tell me to come out?" And I was like, "When were you in my room? And
mm-hmm,
why would you come into my room?" Because as we would say, I kind of sleep very sound. So some of these instances I wouldn't be aware of. Some of
mm-hmm,
them I was aware of. I was wide awake. And then there are instances like what I've just spoken about, where you would say to me, like, why did you tell me to come out of your room? So
mm-hmm,
yes, it becomes like it became very excessive, at points where I feel like I, I can't do nothing about it.
mm-hmm. Kamar, w-
Yes.
w- was there a point where you felt that you had to accept it? Because if you didn't accept it, then your mind could not able to process it.
Yes, that happened, and it more so went to that in an instances where a family member found out, and she kind of was like, "Oh, if this ever happened, I'm going to tell your mom," and blah blah blah. So I was like, "This is my fault." And I remember I was just begging, like, I didn't do anything, like, because my mom was a very stern person, and she wasn't living in Jamaica at the time. And anything she hears, whether like, oh, she probably like this guy, or oh, she's not doing well in school, my mom would be on the phone. And I was kind of like scared of my mom growing up. Um,
Right, right, right.
Each thing I would get a spanking. um, and so I was like so fearful, like, why would I didn't do anything? I was kind of like begging this person,
Hmm. All
like,
right,
I didn't do anything.
right. So instead of protecting you, they blamed you, right?
Yeah.
All right. So moving forward, let's talk about as you got older into teenage years and you start liking boys. How did this affect you, really, from your perception of boys and men?
Okay, so for me, there was this young guy in my community that liked me. I liked him. But before this happened, I would never give him the chance of getting too close to me. We would talk and stuff like that, but if he tries to, I would be like, no, and I'm going home. But after this incident, and it continued to happen, I was like, you know, God is not there for me. I'm going to do me. So
Mm-hmm.
I started giving this person access to me in a way that I wouldn't. And I gave him my virginity.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, as most young girls would say, they change after, like these. boys, they might change. So what had happened, I remember I Saturday night I saw him talking to this other young lady, and I was like, wow. So I can't win. That, I'm being molested against my will. I gave someone else my virginity freely, and now I realized that he wasn't who he said he was. Then that's when I decided I'm going to take my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that Sunday morning, I remember I woke up and I took 39 pills, a mixture of Advil and Exogen, blacked out for I don't know how long it was, revived, taken to the hospital, and
Wait a minute. You said 39.
39,
How did
39.
you know? Oh, did you
That's
know?
the thing. Okay, so what had happened was I remember I it's the same person who was molesting me. He would always take pills like pressure pills or whatever. So I knew he always had bottles of pills. So I asked him, "Can I get something? I'm having a headache." And I remember I kind of dunked out some of the pills, and I counted. I don't know why, but I remember when I counted, it was 20 the first time, and I took it and nothing is happening. I was like, why nothing is happening? And then I went and I got some more. I counted it, 39. And then, I mean, after a while, it didn't take long after that for me to like black out. And how I knew I blacked out is because I felt someone like really tapping me hard, like, what did you do? Like shaking me so hard. And then I remember when they were shaking me and I kind of came back to, I said, I didn't do anything. And they're like, no, you're not, that's not true. Tell us what you did. And that's when I had admitted that, I took pills and they rushed me to the hospital. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes. And what happened after that?
So when I got to the hospital, doctors were like very shocked that I was even sitting in the waiting room. um, they were saying like, how is this possible? You should have been dead like seconds after taking all these pills. So what they did, they put IV inside of me, and they rushed me to the floor, and they started pumping out the liquid
Mm-hmm.
through my stomach, so that it wouldn't absorb too much, I guess, into my system, because
Mm-hmm.
they thought I would die before even reaching out the hospital. So now they're like doing everything possible to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I didn't die at the hospital. So yeah, and I remember that first night being in the hospital, the nurse that was working that night, when she came to my bed, she said to me, I read your chart. And I'm just shocked. She's like, I've seen people come inside this hospital that has taken way less pill than you, that has not even taken pills that you've
Mm-hmm.
taken, and they didn't make it. She says, God has a purpose for your life.
Yes, yes, he has a purpose. I can see that.
Yes.
And you know what I'm thinking too?
Yes.
People think that if there's no penetration, it's not abuse.
Mm.
But your entire soul, your entire dignity was violated, not just physically violated, but your belief about yourself, your integrity,
Mhm.
everything was violated because
Yes.
it was done against your will and while you were a child.
Yes.
And molesters don't seem to understand how much they destroy children when they do these things.
Hmm.
And I just want to ask you if you were going to church at this time. And
I was going to church, and oh my God, I remember feeling so much as I talked about being having shame. This is another added level of shame.
mm,
Like, how could I go back home? How could I look at these people in the face? Oh my God, I was going out of my mind. But I remember as the days went by and I was in the hospital, I was just grateful not to have died. And
mhm,
that I even spoke to my mom while I was in the hospital, and she sounded so like out of it, like I could have lost my daughter, and I don't even know why.
mhm,
I remember just being grateful and thanking God for being alive. And I met this girl. I don't even know if she's out there. Oh my God, her name was Sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
She too had taken pills, but she took her grandma pills and she made it. And we had a friendship. And I think God is so purposeful how we align things. Because looking back now and I'm like, Sunshine, that name is just everything. Like in the midst of the darkness, you're sunshine. And just looking back, that I
Yeah.
get perspective on the
So,
moment.
so Kamar, when you got out of the hospital and you went back to church, were you serving when you actually fell from grace? And how did the church receive you? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so when I went back home, before I even talk about getting back to church, I remember driving home and all the young children that I helped to teach and sing and all of that, they ran behind the car to the house and they were just calling my name. They were just so happy to see me. And I remember I got out of the car and I was in utter, just disbelief of the overwhelming love that people had for me. I didn't feel that to that degree at the time before I took pills. And I remember when I went back to church, oh my God, my church was so supportive. I don't remember if anyone even ever asked me, why did you do it or anything. I can't remember that was ever a question. But they received me with open arms. And when I was ready, I went right back into doing what God was using me to do, just
Right.
be a part of the praise team,
Yeah.
helping the children, and I just dig deep into God even more.
So I see, I'm hearing redemption,
Yes,
hearing forgiveness,
yes,
I'm hearing restoration,
yes,
and
yes.
just that's such a pleasant story
Mm-hmm.
because so many times people are saying the church didn't support them. Your
Mm-hmm.
story is different.
Yes, very
Church, the
different.
church did exactly what the church does,
Yes,
support,
yes.
right? Especially when somebody is down, you know.
Yeah.
And talk to us about, what happened to this gentleman, and did your parents eventually discover what was happening to you?
Um, so in regards to this person that violated me, nothing happened. I got older. I left and I went to Kingston to continue my education. And it was just maybe 3, 4 years ago. I,
Hmm.
I told my mom about what had happened. But to be completely transparent in this moment, when I told her, she didn't seem surprised or she didn't really like, how come you didn't tell me, stuff like that. And in that moment, or even before that moment, I kind of knew she went through her own thing that she's probably not willing to talk about as yet. So
Hmm.
I did not take it too personal. I have feelings, so I was like, why wouldn't she ask me that? What happened, more in depth. But then I just had compassion for her in that moment. And I
Hmm.
knew God was doing his thing in the sense that I was able to open up to her. And I'm at a place now where I have forgiven this person to a degree because at the time I didn't completely forgive him. I was still struggling with that.
Hmm.
Uh, but I can truly say right now I have. And in regards to him, he's fine to my knowledge at this moment. Uh,
Hmm.
Authorities was not called, no, nothing like that.
Okay, so at this point, after experiencing abuse and rejection, how do you feel about men?
You know what? For so long, I believe because of what I went through, I've made so many bad decisions when it comes down to men. And also because I did not have my father in my life and I yearned for that kind of love and acceptance. I struggled for a very long time with, my self worth and stuff like that. But I can truly sit here and say God has been redeeming me day by day. I've grown to know how to pray in a way where I'm very intentional with what I pray about and seek God about. And I see where He's working on me. So when it comes on to men and relationship, Oh yes, I am waiting for my boys.
Yeah.
And I know God is going to send me that right person who will cover me in the areas where I'm vulnerable and in the
Praise
areas where
God.
he knows that, I need special attention. He's sending that right person. So I have not given up on love. I don't see all men in the same light. They're great men out here. And I
Mhm.
would not group everyone, in a generic statement to say all men, do bad things. No.
And I'm so happy for your answer because so many young women or even older women have experienced what you have experienced
Mhm.
and worse, and they feel that they have to become angry and bitter, which has led them down to other roads that are they can't recover from. So I'm
Mhm.
so happy for that, and it tells me a lot about how God is able to deliver us from shame and pain and bring healing. And your story is an example of healing. And
Yes, it is.
what I really want to ask you now, if you should have a daughter, what would you say to her?
First and foremost, there's nothing off limits that you can come to me about. I will create an open space to talk about any and everything, and to be a parent who is open with her child. Like for me, I wouldn't hide the fact that I was molested and and what I've went through, because I believe that that's what a lot of problem in this generation, and even in terms of in the family dynamics. We hide a lot of stuff. We push things under the carpet, and then it starts to manifest itself in the other generation. And then we trying to figure out, what did I do? So that's what I would do. I would break down. This is what it was. God has redeemed me, and your mom is here for you. Talk about any and everything, whatever is has come through your thoughts. Bring it to the table. I am open. I will have a conversation. I won't be closed off, because that's what my reality was. You know.
Thank you for that, Kamar. And I have one other question before we close this session, and that is if you could change anything about your past, what would it be?
So the thing was, when I was a little girl, I remember I always wanted my parents to be together. I always wanted family. I wanted my mom present, my dad present. And that's what I would change, to have both parents, because I believe, because my mom wasn't present, my dad wasn't present, and I had to be taking care of my grandma who passed away. Not long after I started high school, I just went to extended family, so I was just like being moved around in a sense, and I would just want a stable home,
Hmm.
parents that would love, protect me. I believe my outcome would have been so much different.
Yes, thank you for that. And I know that sometimes our experiences set us up for future purpose.
Hmm.
And so, based on that, what is your present purpose in the kingdom in helping young women and people who have experienced what you have experienced?
Today I was listening to an apostle while I was at work, and he says, your treasure your scars, because your scars is what will, often than not take you into your purpose, your destiny. So right now I'm treasuring my scars. And he also said, look at Jesus. You won't only know him because of the crown. You'll know him by the scars in his hands. And I'm walking with my scars proudly, because I know with my scars I can help so much other ladies, young girls,
Mhm.
to find self worth, to believe in themselves, to know that they can speak up. Don't be afraid. Don't think that if you speak up, you'll have no support. You'll have support. You probably didn't know it, but you'll see people coming to help you. And I want young ladies to know that their worth is everything. So right now my purpose is to help everyone that I can. I won't hide what I've gone through and be in shame anymore. I believe God allowed me to walk through this, and He's taken me out of it. And now I'm an overcomer, so I will share that story. And I told God that I will, wherever He chooses to use me in terms of telling my story, that's what I'll do.
Amen. Thank you, Kamar, for
Thank you.
just being so transparent and sharing your story with with us and our listeners who's probably going through the same thing. And I just want to encourage our listeners at this moment, if you know of anyone who is going through sexual abuse in any form, please find a way to report it. And if you yourself is going through that, report it as well and get help, because there's help out there. And thank you for tuning in to Raw and Unedited Stories. And remember to subscribe and like. And if you have a story to share, check the link below and send us a message. Have a phenomenal day.